Cadel Evans is the only rider to have worn the 5 most coveted jerseys in cycling: the 3 Grand Tour Leaders jerseys, the Pro Tour jersey and the Rainbow jersey. Now, fresh from his recent win at the Road World Championships in Switzerland, Cadel Evans is on a different circuit. He's on the book circuit, promoting his new autobiography, Close to Flying. And he joins us in the breakfast studio. Cadel, welcome to breakfast.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Cadel, first, congratulations on winning the Road World Championships in Switzerland. That's a big deal.
Yeah, certainly from our point of view, and in road cycling, it's one of the more prestigious races to win, and it came at the right time of year.
And it came at the right time of life, really, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a pretty good moment fitting in, coming out with a book, and that helped. But it's my home away from home in Europe, and after a pretty unlucky year and a year that's filled with a lot of frustrations and bad luck, to be rewarded with that in the end sort of turns it all around, and
So a real boost to your confidence.
Boost of confidence, but more rewards for the hard work that I've been putting in for all these years, and particularly this year. It's when you're working hard at something and you don't get the rewards you reserve, it can get very frustrating. But this year it finally turned around for me on the big day.
Well, that's good to hear, and we'll get to your sort of career now in a moment. But you've written a book. It's your life story, Close to Flying, your life up to 32 years of age, and it starts with you starting to ride as a very young boy. Looking back, you began riding at just the right time as mountain bike riding was beginning to flourish. There was a future there for you, and you were pretty young when you first realised that, weren't you?
I started competing when I was 15 years old, which is for cycling a fairly normal kind of age to start competing. I'd always been riding a lot since I think I was 2 years old, but in mountain biking, I got to a pretty high level at a young age. I think at age 17, I was riding World Cup races and racing internationally, and I rode my first senior World Championships and first Olympics, I think, at age 19. So that was young in that regard.
I'm not sure how many of us are riding at 2, but most of us are riding by the time we're 5 or 6, but most of us never think we're going to be cycling champions. Do you remember, as a very little boy, when you first thought, this is for me?
I don't know if it came when I was a very little boy, as you put it, but when I was 14 or 15, I sort of discovered cycling and competitive cycling more so, which in Australia it's not a cultural sport like it is in many countries in Europe, for example. But when I sort of watching the Tour de France on SBS TV in the evenings, or back then it was just highlights packages, or just discovering reading magazines from America or something. It's like, well, you can make a profession out of this. Well, I'm going to do whatever it takes to do that, and so I worked at that, and here I am 16 years on. And
people who saw you early on saw you had something special. For a start, there's a great story of one observer at a race in Thredbo. You finished 5 minutes ahead of everyone else. You're still a young lad. You were going so fast, it was almost silly. So you had something special. People started telling you that early?
At the start, I as a junior and a sub-junior, age 15, 16, 17 years old, I did win a lot of national level races, and obviously it's very encouraging when you're winning a lot, but I also I think I look back at it now, and I was grateful that I just met some right people who could sort of not so much harness that, but keep everything under control, because often lots of success can also bring problems in other ways. And I was lucky that, as it explains in the book, my first coach that I had, Damien Grundy, and some really good people that have been in right from the start of my competitive career, could sort of keep everything under control, and always keep me heading towards working bigger and better things.
And you nearly didn't get there. You were 8 years old when you had an accident with a horse. A horse kicked you in the head. It was severe.
Of course at the time I knew it was pretty severe, but when I went back and read the section, my mother wrote the section about going through the accident, being in intensive care in the hospital in Newcastle. When I read back, when I read through the manuscript the first time months ago and read it from her perspective, it brought tears to my eyes. Actually, it was really quite moving to see it from that regard. I was unconscious at the time, so wasn't aware of anything.
I should explain. A horse kicked you and actually depressed your skull.
Yep, that's right.
It was pressing
yeah.
on your brain, and there was big questions about whether you'd even walk again, let alone
or whether I'd even live.
cycle up the mountains in France.
Whether I'd even live and, read and write and lead a normal life was sort of the first question. And then, when you have a piece of your skull resting on your brain and the pressure and so on on something like your brain and in your skull, it's puts and presents a few problems. But evidently things seem to have turned out all right. So life went on from that. 4 or 5 years of splitting headaches afterwards, but otherwise fine.
You're a champion, and we all recognise you on the bike riding up the hills of France. That's what we watch on the telly. In the flesh, you're not a big lad. You're not, and you talk in the book about you had no aptitude for most sports, really.
That's what everyone does say that to me when they meet me for the first time in person. You're not as big as you appear on television.
So what is it? Is it lung capacity? Is it strong thighs? What is the secret?
Power to weight ratio. There aren't many bike riders that weigh over 70 kilograms, and I'm under 70 kilograms. So it's that's the main thing in cycling. Television just gives a perception of bike riders are bigger than that they are. But it's but mainly in bike riding, it's hard work and tenacity that you really need, and if you've got some physical ability, that goes a long way as well.